Hello everyone and welcome back to the Blackfoot Book Club, and I bring you 2022's Halloween Ends. Prior to visiting my local cinema this afternoon with my two favourite people in all the world, one of those glorious human beings, my beautiful son, insisted we end Halloween at the very beginning and the 1978 original, as well as leaping forward to the last two iterations of this mythological franchise, last year's Halloween Kills and 2018's 40-year anniversary of the original. I saw the original for the one and only time well over 2 decades ago, and I didn't care for it then, and, heathen that I am, I don't particularly care for it now. What I did though enjoy was the stark juxtaposition between the slowly crafted suspense and oddities of the original John Carpenter directed film that runs at its own deliberately slow pace, with the grotesquely over-the-top, almost slasher-type recent additions to this cinematic canon under the direction of David Gordon Green. Green returns in the director's chair, here alongside the beautifully evergreen Jamie Lee Curtis for her 7th, or 8th if you include the uncredited appearance in Halloween 3, outing as Laurie Strode, and nearly 4 decades since I first fell in love with her and the infusion of love, fun, and humanity she introduced beside Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy in the John Landis directed Trading Places in 1983, in an epochal film of my adolescent years. The original Halloween should have been similarly significant in my growing up and early tentative steps into the world of film appreciation, but I simply can't see past Friedkin's The Exorcist from 1973 or Kubrick's The Shining 7 years later. Both of these horror films had and still continue to hold a significant vice-like grip over my horror film-loving heart, with only A Nightmare on Elm Street and The Blair Witch Project coming close to joining the horror films of my youth. Halloween Ends won't be joining these epochal films, but it is far, far better than the 2 most recent additions to the franchise and concludes somewhat of a trilogy of films that has seemingly finally brought an end to this cinematic saga. There's a verve and vitality here that's sorely absent from the films of 2018 and 2021, with the opening scenes pre the film's famously reprised opening credits reminiscent of horror films of old, with odd camera angles brilliantly capturing the shadows and reflections of a winding spiral staircase before the shocker, the opening shocker of a film that I enjoyed. The slasher-type horror is scaled back and only really prevalent in the second half of the film, with the first half a surprisingly bright, hopeful film of acceptance, young love, moving on, and the writing of a final chapter in a lifelong drama that confirms the ultimate closure. This isn't Laurie Strode's story, and nor, paradoxically, is it the story of Michael Myers, the neighbourhood masked boogeyman. Laurie has firmly moved on and no longer the freak show of local renown. Her closure is in the form of her written memoir and part film narration, and the final ending of this chapter in her life before the beginning of a fresh new one. Arguably the film is of coming of age and young love, of life's outsiders, and Laurie's granddaughter Alison, Andy Matischak, and Corey, Rohan Campbell, with Corey in particular the cornerstone of the film's initial placement at Halloween in 2019, before the film roots itself in the present day and a particularly impressive performance from Matischak. With the addition and insertion of so many iconic moments as shards of memory throughout the early part of the film and its very definite conclusion, one can only assume that this is a final and absolute ending to the franchise. The production team from Blumhouse never fail in the horror department, and they haven't here, as well as confirming that this is their final involvement in the franchise. But can the same be said for the film's original director John Carpenter? Alongside his son Cody and Daniel Davies, the trio provide a brilliantly atmospheric musical soundtrack to accompany the end of his original character creations. But is this the end for Michael Myers? Horror history suggests not, that Halloween Ends is a worthy enough finale for a 4 decades long horror franchise. And that was Halloween Ends from 2022. And I'll leave you in peace and in solidarity. And I thank you so much for watching. Peace everyone.